Howdy, scholars. We've made it to the lucky 13th episode of the AMLET podcast, where we've been spending all of our time reading through and interpreting the Navajo Creation Story. In our previous episode, First Man followed signs like clouds and fire, lightning, rain, and rainbow to the summit of Great Spruce Mountain. There, he heard an infant's cry and found a turquoise figure of a girl. He carried the figure home, but her creation was not yet complete. And so, in this episode, the holy people transform the sacred figure into a living child. First man and first woman raise her as their daughter, and within only a few days, she passes through infancy and enters young womanhood. Her life becomes the source of two important ceremonies. First is the first laugh ceremony, and second is the first race. Our central question of the episode is one to chew on, as I always ask you to, so that we can work up an answer by the end. How does a community recognize and guide a person through the stages of life? So open your texts and take notes if you're willing, and let's go. 2 days later, first man and first woman were awakened very early in the morning by the sound whoo, 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 or whoo, 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 whoo. They knew it was talking God. He told them they must return to the top of Great Spruce Mountain with the turquoise figure in 12 days. So 2 days after the turquoise figure is brought home, first man and first woman awaken to a woohoo. They recognize the voice as talking God, who instructs them to return to Great Spruce Mountain with the turquoise figure in 12 days. The 12-day interval, which is a multiplier of 4, of course, introduces another period of waiting. The figure has been found, but it cannot yet be treated as complete. First man and first woman are given a task instead of a full explanation. They must preserve the figure and return it at the appointed time, and their role depends upon attention and obedience to ceremonial timing. So let's continue with the next paragraph. When they reached a level spot just below the summit of Great Spruce Mountain, Talking God was there waiting for them. House God was there. Water Sprinkler was there. With them was the wind. Talking God lay a perfect buckskin on the ground with its head facing the west. On the buckskin, first man lay the turquoise figure of a girl with her head to the west. Then Talking God placed another perfect buckskin over the figure with its head facing east. The holy people began to sing the sacred song of Blessing Way, and the wind entered between the buckskin blankets. The upper blanket was removed, and beneath it was a living baby girl. Her name was Changing Woman. The holy people told first man and first woman to take her to their home and raise her as their daughter. So the transformation takes place just below the summit of Great Spruce Mountain, and the location remains connected to the place where first man originally found the turquoise figure. House God, Water Sprinkler, and Wind all join Talking God. Each has already participated in actions of creation in this story that we've seen in previous episodes. Talking God places a perfect buckskin on the ground with its head facing west. First man lays the turquoise figure upon it in the same direction. A second buckskin is placed above her head facing east, and the figure rests between opposing directions, and the whole ceremony resembles kind of like this womb of sorts connected in between these two blankets. The holy people sing a song, and wind enters beneath between the two buckskins. As in earlier creation scenes, wind carries the force of life, and it does so again in this section. When the upper buckskin is removed, the turquoise figure has become a living baby girl. The transformation is revealed only after the song and movement of the wind are complete. She is named Changing Woman, as she will not remain fixed in one age or form. The holy people then tell first man and first woman to take her home and raise her as their daughter. And I just think that's just so sweet, especially compared to how we've seen exclusion work to this community's detriment. And it's like they're learning. So, return to the text here for a little bit more of the story. So first woman and first man carried Changing Woman to their hogan, and first man made a cradle board and tied her in it. Now she will be my daughter, he said. First woman took the baby and breathed on her 4 times. Now, she said, she will be my daughter. At the end of the second day, the baby laughed for the first time. First Angry the Coyote arrived and said, I was told that my grandchild laughed for the first time. First woman took charcoal and gave it to Coyote, saying, This is the only thing that lasts. He painted his nose with it and said, I shall know all things. I shall live long by it. Satisfied with the gift, he departed. Since then, persons always receive a gift when a baby laughs for the first time and the first laugh ceremony is performed. There is really nothing sweeter in the world than a baby laugh, so I love to see it celebrated here. So first man and first woman carry Changing Woman back to their hogan, and first man makes a cradle board and secures the baby within it. He then declares her his daughter. First woman takes the child and breathes upon her 4 times, declaring the baby her daughter as well. At the end of the second day, such a precious sound, the baby laughs. Her first laughter marks another stage of arrival into human life. Then First Angry appears and calls the child his grandchild. We have been on a journey with First Angry. And now he's officially like a part of this family. And we hear it takes a village, and this village even includes First Angry. His claim places him within this network of relationship surrounding the baby. First woman gives him charcoal, which is the remnant left after fire has been consumed by wood, and she does so saying that this is the only thing that lasts, which is another whole beautiful metaphor that I think all of us can chew on a little bit. Coyote paints his nose with it and connects the gift with knowledge and long life. The exchange here establishes the first laugh ceremony of the Navajo. I just, I really wish that we did these sort of things today. I guess maybe now we post it on Facebook or any other social media outlet, but it's so intimate. Um, anyway, I love how this whole community is gathering around to celebrate a person's first expression of joy, and I think it kind of nudges me as I reread this story with you all and put on this podcast that we should celebrate even the smallest expressions of joy, even when things are difficult. So, this last paragraph of the section is a little lengthier, but hang tight with me and then I'll talk about it. By the 13th day, Changing Woman had become a young woman. And on that day, she said to First Woman, Something unusual has passed through me. First Woman said, That is your first race. They covered the floor of the hogan with blankets, and Changing Woman lay on them face down. First Man pulled her hair down, shaped her face, and dressed her in beautiful goods, beads, bracelets, and earrings, and tied her hair with a strip of perfect buckskin. Then First Man and First Woman stepped outside the hogan and told Changing Woman to run her first race around a cedar tree and return from east to west as the sun does. When she returned, they invited all the people to sing a song over her in the hogan called Changeable House on a mountain 4 days later. A great crowd gathered in the evening of the fourth day. A sweet corn cake was made from different colored cornmeal sweetened with yeast. The night chant was sung, and in the morning the men received some of the maiden's cake as a gift for their chants. And Changing Woman sat in the back of the hogan as gifts were piled in front of her. In this way, the first race of every young woman should be celebrated. So, Changing Woman is a young lady by the 13th day of her life, and this is a seemingly sacred speed. She tells First Woman that something unusual has passed through her, and First Woman identifies the experience as her first menstruation, as described here, first race. While Western culture today often conceals and belittles and dehumanizes menstruation in general, it's totally natural and essential for development. And the Navajo see it as worthy enough of ceremony. Blankets are spread across the floor of the hogan, and Changing Woman lies face down upon them. First Man shapes her hair and face and dresses her in beautiful clothing, beads, bracelets, and earrings. Here, Changing Woman's body is understood as responsive, developing, and capable of being guided. The perfect buckskin appears again, this time as just a tie in her hair, which is beautiful, altogether signifying her transition into womanhood. First Man and First Woman instruct her to run around a cedar tree and return. And after the run, First Man and First Woman invite the people to gather 4 days later. A sweet corn cake is made from several colors of cornmeal and sweetened with yeast. They sing the night chant. And by morning, the men who performed the chants received portions of the cake. Changing Woman sits at the back of the hogan while gifts are just placed at her feet, pretty much. And I can tell you confidently that this is not the average experience for the rite of passage into womanhood. And I am so glad to read a story where Changing Woman is celebrated for this. And so, if we return to our original question, how does a community recognize and guide a person through the stages of life? We can use Changing Woman's story as an anecdote. The key is to, again, pay attention. Her arrival is prepared through ceremony. Breath confirms her adoption. Her first laugh is met with a gift, and her first menstruation initiates shaping, running, singing, cooking, and gathering. I love that maturity is celebrated here, especially as Americans in the 21st century, and America is primarily a youth culture. And it's in this story, in this section of the story, we see that change comes as a source of continuity, and it's natural and it's not necessarily anything to be scared of on its own. And so, thanks so much for listening to the AmLit podcast. I'll see you soon for the last seed of the Navajo Creation Story. You all have been such troopers, and I don't know, I'll see you at the last one. Take care.